Welcome to the deep dive. So if you're in the security trenches right now, you definitely know the old perimeter model, the one we built everything around. It's basically dead. Attackers aren't really focused on, breaking in anymore.
No, they found a shortcut.
Exactly. They're just logging in.
That really is the critical shift, isn't it? I mean, Microsoft's data says over 80% of breaches now involve identity. That's huge.
80%.
It's not just some alarming stat. It kind of points to a fundamental failure in how we thought about security. The idea that the network boundary was solid.
Right.
But if an attacker just waltzes in the front door with, a valid key,
right.
Well, your firewalls don't really see it.
It doesn't matter anymore. Okay, so our mission today, then, is to really unpack this security category built for this problem, identity threat detection and response, ITDR. We want to get into what it is, why it matters so much now, and crucially, how it closes this massive blind spot that a lot of traditional tools just miss.
And maybe the most urgent number to start with is this. In 2024, 71% of attacks used valid credentials. 71%.
Wow.
So identity really has become the new perimeter. It's porous, it's everywhere. The moment an attacker gets hold of an account, whether they steal it or, buy it cheap off some dark web marketplace, they instantly look like a trusted insider.
Okay, let's pivot off that. Section 1, the core problem. Why are our traditional security tools, failing this identity test?
Yeah.
The old playbook, it was malware, right? Exploiting vulnerabilities.
Dropping files, finding bugs.
But now, the weapon is the user account itself, or a token, a credential.
And that's exactly where the traditional tools, they stumble. Take EDR, endpoint detection and response. EDR is, it's fantastic technology for spotting suspicious processes or, malicious files on a machine.
Sure.
But what happens when the attacker uses a perfectly valid identity? There might be no malware file, nothing for EDR to hook onto.
Because the activity looks legit.
On the surface, yes. It looks like maybe, Bob from accounting logging in. EDR is fundamentally file-centric or process-centric, but this attack, it's identity-centric. EDR is just functionally blind to that kind of misuse.
Okay, that makes sense for EDR. But what about SIEM? Security information and event management, they collect tons of logs, right? Can a good analyst just write the right rules to catch these credential attacks?
That's a really common question, and it's a critical distinction. SIEMs are brilliant collectors. Yes, they gather everything, but they often lack the deep behavioral intelligence needed for context.
Context.
Yeah. Think of it like this. A SIEM collects all the letters arriving at a house. Great. But does it inherently know what normal mail looks like for that specific person? Does it know that getting 3 letters a day is normal, but 300 is weird?
Probably not out of the box.
Exactly. Or that logging in at 9 a.m. is normal, but 3 a.m. is suspicious for that user. Attackers specifically weaponize valid accounts because they can often mimic legitimate behavior just enough to fly under the radar of those general-purpose, rule-based SIEM detections.
So basically, without ITDR, you, the listener, you're stuck being reactive.
Totally.
You're always chasing the intrusion after it happened, trying to clean up the mess once the attacker's already been lurking, maybe moving laterally for days, completely unseen.
Which guarantees maximum dwell time, and that's what turns a small breach into a massive headline-grabbing disaster.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2. Let's properly define ITDR and talk about what it actually does. So formally, ITDR is focused squarely on detecting threats that use stolen or abused identities, right?
Correct. It does this by monitoring things like authentication logs, looking closely at account behavior over time, access patterns, basically trying to spot those subtle anomalies much, much sooner.
And what kind of signals are we talking about? It's not just failed logins, I assume.
Oh, no, much more than that. ITDR is really looking for those specific post-compromise behaviors, the indicators that someone's already in and doing bad things.
Like what?
Okay, so things like multi-factor authentication bypass attempts or impossible travel logins. That's a classic.
Where someone logs in from London and then 5 minutes later from Tokyo.
Exactly. Physically impossible. Or maybe dormant accounts suddenly springing back to life after months or years. That's always suspicious.
Right. And what about once they're inside? trying to get more power.
Precisely. ITDR is really good at spotting privilege escalation attempts, lateral movement trying to jump from one system to another, and it's also critical for detecting those really sophisticated high-level compromises.
Like admin accounts.
Yes, including really nasty stuff like golden ticket attacks or Kerberos attacks. These are complex, but basically they let an attacker forge the highest level of trust. It's like they've minted their own master key to the entire digital kingdom.
Wow. Okay. And if ITDR spots these signals early, how does it actually help stop the attack? How does it limit that lateral movement?
It's the in ITDR, the response. This isn't just about alerts. Good ITDR integrates tightly with your identity and access management, your IAM system.
Oh, okay.
So when it detects something really dodgy, maybe that impossible travel followed immediately by an attempt to access a super sensitive server, the system doesn't just flag it. It can trigger an automated response.
Like what? Shutting the account down.
Exactly. Or forcing an immediate password reset, maybe invalidating all the current login sessions for that user. You're actively cutting the attacker's connection before they deploy ransomware or start stealing gigabytes of data.
Got it. So early detection plus automated response. That makes sense. But you mentioned integration, and that brings up the silo problem, right? All this data lives in different places, which takes us to section 3, silos versus synthesis. That operational friction must be a nightmare.
It's probably the single biggest headache for security teams today, honestly. You're constantly jumping between screens. EDR for endpoints, SIEM for logs, maybe NDR for network traffic, IAM for identity.
And then maybe a separate ITDR tool on top.
Right, which just adds another console, another set of alerts for already stretched teams, especially for MSPs and MSSPs. Alerts get missed, context gets lost because the tools aren't talking to each other effectively.
So the answer is integration, embedding ITDR.
Yes, exactly. The power move here is leveraging what's often called Open XDR. That's extended detection and response. The extended part is key.
How so?
By embedding ITDR directly into a platform that's already unifying all your other security data, endpoint, network, cloud, logs, you kill that friction. You get correlated insights. The system sees the whole picture.
In one place.
In one place. That correlation is like the magic sauce. It automatically connects seemingly random disconnected events into a single coherent attack story.
Okay, let's make that real. Give us an example. How does that unified view actually help an analyst on the ground?
Okay, think about this scenario. We see this happen. An attacker buys a single stolen login credential, maybe for like $15 on some forum. Cheap.
Unbelievable.
And that one credential can end up causing millions in damages. Now, watch how an integrated platform, an Open XDR with embedded ITDR, handles it.
Okay.
First, the system sees a user login from, say, an unusual country, a bit suspicious. That's identity data.
Right.
Minutes later, maybe the same user tries to access a domain controller or some other privileged system. That's access data, maybe endpoint data triggering too. Then they start downloading a large volume of sensitive files that's pulling in log data, network data.
So instead of the analyst getting 3 separate, maybe low priority alerts, a weird login, an admin access attempt, a big download,
Right.
which they might ignore because they get hundreds of alerts a day.
Exactly. Alert fatigue is real. But the integrated platform sees the connections. It automatically stitches those events together.
They're impressive.
It presents one single high-priority, high-confidence alert, a contextualized attack story. The analyst isn't drowning in noise. They're looking at something meaningful with the context already built in. That means faster, way more accurate response.
That makes a huge difference. Which brings us nicely to section 4, the strategic advantages. Let's start with efficiency gains. For security operations, especially MDR providers, efficiency is everything, right? It's a competitive edge.
Absolutely. Time is money, and false positives cost a fortune. Embedded ITDR delivers huge efficiency improvements. That automated correlation we just talked about, it slashes the time analysts spend manually digging through logs, trying to connect dots.
Less manual work.
Way less. And the identity context helps them prioritize much faster using risk scoring. Is this risky behavior coming from a regular user or a privileged admin? That changes the priority instantly.
And this leads to better metrics.
Definitely. You see real measurable improvements in your mean time to detect, MTTD, and your mean time to respond, MTTR. You're literally getting faster at finding and stopping threats.
Okay, efficiency is key. What about compliance and trust? Customers need proof their security is solid, especially around identity.
And regulators demand it. ITDR is absolutely vital here. It provides the hard evidence, the verifiable metrics you need to satisfy major frameworks. Think NIST, CSF, ISO 27001, SUSE C2, HiPA, CIS controls.
They all care about identity protection.
Deeply. It's a core control area in virtually every standard. So by actively monitoring identity threats and showing you can respond, you generate proof. Measurable data showing you're managing identity risk effectively. That's gold for audits, for cyber insurance, and for building trust with your clients.
And finally, let's talk commercial opportunities.
Yeah.
This sounds like a strong area for service providers, for MSSPs. Why is identity risk such a good place to focus for, say, upselling services?
It's almost easy mode for upselling, relatively speaking. Why? Because every single client understands identity risk, at least instinctively. They all use Microsoft 365 or Azure AD or Google Workspace.
Yeah, it's universal.
They get the value of those accounts, and they get the potential pain if they're compromised. The ROI for protecting cloud access, protecting those core identities, it's immediately obvious. It's often an easier conversation than selling, say, more complex infrastructure security.
So it allows MSSPs to shift the conversation.
Exactly. They can move from just being seen as, monitoring tools to being proactive attack disruptors, focused on the client's most visible assets, their user accounts.
And you can structure this into service tiers, drive
Yeah,
more
nice.
recurring revenue.
Absolutely. It lends itself perfectly to tiered offerings. You could have an essential tier, maybe basic identity monitoring and alerting, then an advanced tier adding things like Amoeba user and entity behavior analytics, plus some automated response like locking accounts. And then maybe a premium tier with full incident response support, deep dives into lateral movement, maybe even threat hunting focused on identity. For partners using platforms like Enhance.io, for instance, they get these ITDR alerts baked right into their workflows, unified reporting, without necessarily needing a huge expansion of their own analyst team. They leverage the platform's intelligence.
Makes sense. Leverage the platform, scale the protection. Okay, so let's wrap this up. We started with that pretty stark reality. Identity is ground zero now. Attackers log in, they don't break in. And ITDR isn't just nice to have anymore. It's really essential for closing that huge visibility gap. It helps MSSPs level up their services and build, real customer trust with measurable results.
Yeah, it's become foundational. And that brings me to maybe a final thought, something provocative for you, the listener, to chew on.
Okay, let's hear it.
Given that ITDR is moving from being a bolt-on accessory to being integral, right in the middle of the detection pipeline, ask yourself this. What operational assumptions in your current security setup does an identity-first approach immediately expose as, well, flawed or vulnerable?
Interesting question.
Because the MSSPs, the security teams that really win in the next couple of years, they'll be the ones who fundamentally re-architect their defenses around identity, not just cling to the crumbling perimeter. That's the strategic shift.